In this video, we are going to finish our update functionality so that we can update our database. Remember, we have this form that's an update form, and inside that update form, there's this submit button called edit record. When we click on this submit button, we are setting the submit button. So when we set the submit button, we want to create this update query. So inside the curly braces, let's declare a variable called update Q. And let's set that equal to, again, it's a quotation marks, and then go ahead and add the semicolon, get that out of the way. So inside the quotation marks, this is going to be an update query. So we need update. And when you run an update query, what you do is you had to name the table. You want to update food, that's the name of our table, right? Okay, and then we're going to set each of our fields, and they're going to be equal to a certain variable that we're going to get from our form. But we're going to have to use a where clause. So this where clause is going to be where our ID is equal to the ID. In other words, the data ID of the row we clicked on, because we only want to update that particular row. Okay, so now we have to get our variables in our define our fields. Remember, it's set our field equal to our variable. So let's declare ID and set it equal to a mysql I real escape string. I have a macro for this, so that's going to be our field ID, right? Let's check that. Do a search for update form, and it's actually edit ID. And we can see in our update form, we have edit underscore before the field name that corresponds to the name of our fields in the table. So let's go up to the top. So when we set the edit record, we want to get the edit underscore ID, and that's going to be our ID. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy some of this because we have other fields. We need to change the names appropriately. So we're going to create a variable for each one of our fields that we want to update. And they are going to correspond to an edit underscore the name of the field. You see how that works? These are the names of the fields in our table that we created. And they're the names of the fields of our inputs. So the next thing we have to do is replace all of our fields in variables. So we need to get the name, and it's going to be equal to, in quotes, the variable $name. We have to do that for each one of our fields. So we need to separate them with commas. The last one will not have a comma. We also have to have sodium. Okay, we changed all of our names. And we need cholesterol. Copy that because I don't know how to spell that word. So we also have to have sum. But you remember the sum is the sum of carbs plus fat plus protein. We don't need to convert. They've already been converted from grams to calories, so we don't need to do that. So let's update our sum equals sum. So now we have to go down here and we have to declare another variable called result and call a function, mysql query. We need to pass in the connection and the query name. And this is or die. That's just in case there's an error, we want to see what the error is. So mysqli underscore error with the connection will give us the error. So let's try this out. Refresh. So I'm going to click on this number, and the names, we got an issue with that. But anyway, let's see if we can update one of the numbers. Let's go to carbs and let's change it just a little bit. And we're changing this to 160. Okay. Now let's go ahead and submit. Click edit and we see it's now 160. So we have an issue with this name here because it appears that we are cutting the name off wherever there's an apostrophe. See, we don't have the apostrophe up here. So let's edit this record and see if it's the same thing. We get the same thing. And sure enough, we got cut off right at the apostrophe. Again, let's do this. Let's edit this. And we see there's no apostrophe up there in the field, and so we have an issue with that. Let's take a look. Let's go to the code. It's right here. Here's the problem. Okay. Because we use double quotation marks around our echo, we need a single quotation mark around the data name attribute. But inside the data name attribute, there is an apostrophe sometimes, such as like Arby's. And that causes an issue. So what we need to do is escape we use a double quotation mark, but we have to escape it. So we also need to go down here and use a double quotation mark and escape it. So right here, and a double quotation mark, take out that extra one. Okay, so this should work. Let's try this. So I'm going to edit this record and call it Arby's, how about roast beef? Okay, can't type anymore. Okay, that's because of the max length attribute. We'll fix that in a minute. But for right now, I want to see if we can get that apostrophe. And sure enough, we do have the apostrophe. Now let's fix our max length attribute. So in the HTML, find the max length and change that to 50. Okay, so let's try that. Again, we need to update this Arby's roast beef to say beef, and where you are able to type it. Let's see if it updates. And sure enough, it updates. But look, we have underscores between the words in our name. That's good for storing in the database, but when we're displaying it in our table, we want to take those underscores out and replace them with a space. Remember how those underscores got there in the first place? We used the stringreplace function to put them in there so that we can store them with underscores. So let's go back to the code. Now remember when we used the stringreplace function to replace spaces with underscores to store in the database? Let's do the reverse when we export it into the table. So down here where we echo the row name, let's go up here and copy this stringreplace function. That way we don't have to type it over again, and paste it right here. So now we're going to replace the underscore, we need to separate with that with a comma, with a space. Now we need to add the closing parentheses to close our stringreplace function. Okay. So let's take a look. I'm going to click on this row. Now we do want the underscores inside of our field input. I just think it's a really good idea to use some kind of underscores, not to use spaces whenever we're storing data or using it inside code. But we don't want it when we are viewing it. Anyway, this is an example of the U in CRUD. It is update. We are updating the records in the database. And the only thing that's left is the D, which is delete. So in the next video, we will delete our Arby's record. So I know that there is a lot of work left to do with this project, but I wanted to give you an example of the CRUD, the create, read, update, and then the delete. So I'm going to do one more video in this series, and that's going to be a short one because all we need to do is delete this record right here, this other Arby's record. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'm going to do one more video on this, and it's going to be delete. So after that, I'm going to probably change up my ways of making videos. So for now, I really encourage you to go online and learn more about PHP and MySQL. And I'll probably make more videos later. I'll probably just do code walkthroughs because I don't want to have to type and try to think of explaining it at the same time. So anyway, I'll see you later.